sexual freedom within marriage, though, as long as it's within marriage. But sexual freedom, like, that's not cool. Okay, hi everybody. Thanks for coming back if you've been here before, or hi, welcome if you're new. My name's Mickey, I'm a therapist, and we talk about therapy things on this channel. Today, we're talking about Bethy from Girl Defined again, because I want to focus on Bethy's Instagram today, because there is some stuff that's living there that's like very worth discussion, in my opinion, which, to be clear, I'm going to give the same caveat on this video that I give on all of the other ones. When we talk about Bethy, Girl Defined, Paul and Morgan, fundamentalism generally, we're speaking about those things specifically. We're not speaking about Christian people generally. Again, I want to be clear, I have no beef with religious people. I don't give a hoot what you do. That's none of my business. We're talking about that because these people have a history of trying to hide behind their religious identities for the purpose of perpetuating misinformation and disinformation, which is bothersome and also harmful. So that said, I think you guys get it. So let's just get into it.
Sex, this is a trap that I have heard many married women fall into, and me as well. I kind of had this idea when I got married that it was my husband's job to really bring me to life and excite me, and like if I wasn't in the mood or feeling it, it's because he wasn't doing enough during the day, or he wasn't really bringing me to life at night. And what I've realized, I haven't been married that long, but over the last 4 years, is that I can't bring, like, I call them dead bones to the bed, and then it's his job to, like, okay, how are we gonna bring her to life tonight? Like, that is not how it works. And I've talked to other married women who experience this as well. What you have to do is you actually have to, on your own, apart from him, like, get yourself in the mood and excite, like, the eroticism within you before you ever get to the bedroom. I mean, that's something that lingerie can help with. It's not so much for him, it's for you as well, to help you get excited, to help you remember, like, hey, I'm sexy and I have something to bring to this bedroom. I don't know, what do you think about this? Leave your thoughts below.
Okay, since we're on the topic of healthy and safe sexual empowerment, I want to give a shout out to this week's sponsor, Valessa. Thank you so much to Valessa for sponsoring this week's video. You guys know that I love Valessa, and me and my friends at Valessa are doing another giveaway where we are giving away free vibrators or free gift cards for vibrators to everybody who wins the giveaway. I've spoken about how much I love this because as a person who never wins anything, it just warms my gay little heart that everyone gets to win something from this giveaway. So I'm very excited to be giving away free vibrators or free gift cards for vibrators. And as always, I want to talk about some of the fun goodies that Valessa has sent me so you can see what you can get with your gift cards. The first toy that I want to talk about is the Valessa Pebble. First of all, one of my favorite things about Valessa toys is that they come in these adorable little charging cases, which first of all is very convenient, but second of all, it gives them a nice little home to live when you're not using them. It helps keep them clean. It's great for travel. We love that. But I want to talk to you about the Valessa Pebble because if you haven't tried a suction toy before, you are missing out. I've spoken before about how Valessa doesn't have annoying pattern modes on all of their toys, so you don't have to click through a bunch of stuff to get to the good parts. There's very simple and like intuitive controls on this, and it also fits in your hand so easily, and all of the toys are like so soft and comfy and nice. So we love the Pebble in my household. I love the Valessa Pebble. And like I said, if you haven't tried a suction toy, you are really missing out because this will really revolutionize the game. The next toy that I want to talk to you about is the Demi Wand. The Demi Wand, I think, is such a fun toy for people of all different like places in their sexual liberation journey because it's a very simple and easy to operate toy. It's also like very unintimidating, and it tends to be great for use with partners because the flexible head lets you get the angle and the pressure that you need, and it works really well for like varying positions. I really appreciate again that the controls are very easy to operate and that you don't have to click through a bunch of annoying patterns and stuff that nobody uses. You can just increase or decrease the frequency as you need it. If you've been on the channel for any length of time, you will know that I love Valessa because they're a bi-woman company whose mission is to empower everyone to embrace, explore, and celebrate their sexuality. So we love them around here, and I would love for you to go enter the giveaway. So go click the link in the description, enter the giveaway, go win something. I've seen y'all in my comments talking about your $75 and $55 gift cards, by the way. So go enter the giveaway, win your free vibrators or free gift cards for vibrators, and then let me know if you love your Valessa toys, because obviously I love mine. But thank you again to Valessa for sponsoring this week's video. Let's go ahead and hop back in. First of all, this is what I said, there's so much to unpack here. First and foremost, this is an interesting take to me because it's sort of like a combination of like, I want to feel sexually empowered and to be in charge of my own arousal and sexual experience, but also this like weird anti-feminist take of like your partner participating in your life, helping to meet your needs, finishing or like initiating tasks around the house and like taking care of that mental load for you to help free up space for you to feel at all interested or available in sex or intimacy. Like, ugh, gross, don't do that. Like, it's just a weird attitude. First and foremost, I want to address this myth that like it's not your husband's job to participate in your arousal. Like, is it your partner's job to like excite your dead bones? No. But it is important in discussions about sex and intimacy, if sex and intimacy is something that matters for you and for your relationship, that be a collaborative conversation. Ideally, listen, like I don't want to speak prescriptively about people's relationships, but ideally when we talk about shared intimacy for the purpose of mutual connection and pleasure, ideally what we're talking about, first of all, is like learning each other's likes and dislikes and actually caring to meet those. But second of all, that we be choosing to engage in that together in like a typical, again, like ideal situation. We don't want the lead up to intimacy or sex or physical affection to look like just masturbating in separate rooms and then meeting just in time to like, you know, and then and then leaving. Like, this is a very interesting take to me. I don't want to speak prescriptively about people's relationships because there are a variety of ways to be and experience physical and sexual intimacy. And so like do whatever works for you. But I do very much take issue with this idea because it comes from this like Christian purity culture belief, which is that first of all, masturbating is bad. Don't do that. But second of all, learning about your own sexual wants and needs, that's also bad. Don't do that. However, it's not fair for you to put all the pressure on your husband, your poor husband. How could he know how to please you? So don't put that on him either. And so really what we should do is just like make all of this your fault, even though it's not your fault because you grew up in this oppressive and repressive culture. So just like figure it out, buy some lingerie from a conservative website and then get excited. And like, that's not helpful. This is just like harmful and frustrating. And again, just like not reflective of best practice about what we know about intimacy. This also too, I think is rooted in a problem that purity culture creates, which is that people with vulvas having such a discomfort and shame around their own bodies and sexual experiences that they're not given the time or encouragement or space to explore what sexual arousal and orgasm and sexual pleasure looks like for them separately from a partner, which we've already talked about is like such an important piece of sexual development. Again, if sex is something that matters to you and feels safe to you, that's an important piece of that journey, is learning how to do that for ourselves. We talked in a Paul and Morgan video about how it's so key and critical that we be doing that without an audience, because it gives us the space and the freedom to not feel judgment and to not feel weird or embarrassed about trying things that we've never tried before, that we don't know if it will work or not, or we don't know how it's going to feel. All of that space to be almost like creative with your own sexual empowerment and arousal is like very, very important. And this is not something that exists in purity culture. The other like reason that I take issue with this is because when people with vulvas don't have that space, they have like a real serious lack of vocabulary, experience, understanding of their own bodies and their own arousal, and they can't then communicate that to a partner. It's also not lost on me that within this culture that's like very patriarchal and prioritizes the idea of like men knowing everything, doing everything, being like the leaders above all, there's like a pretty significant lack of interest in figuring out what works for your partner, because the reality is that if that partner with a penis is getting their sexual needs met, they don't really care all that much. And so it's not even a conversation that they're thinking or willing to initiate with the partner who has a vulva. And so there is like a real inequity that exists here that's again like propped up by this patriarchal anti-sex culture, even though they're like so obsessed with sex and they talk about sex all the time. There is this like very repressive and like disgusted attitude about sex and intimacy. The other reason that I take issue with this is because Paul and Morgan have recently done this, and I think Bethy in particular, maybe like Girl Defined as a Unit, I don't know, are trying to initiate this shift in their content and in their messaging where they're endorsing these more like progressive ideas about sex and intimacy and physical affection and relationships and those kinds of things. And to me, first of all, this is disingenuous because again, we've talked ad nauseum about how if you're going to prescribe the culture that created the problem in the first place, you don't get to come up with some kind of creative and cool solution for the problems that have been created, because the reality is that you're still very, very heavily encouraging people, if not pressuring and coercing people, to participate and to like have a card-carrying membership in this very cult like community and environment that will again create these problems. Like the thing that is so funny to me about Paul and Morgan and Bethy and like the fundies generally doing this and trying to make this shift is that they are still the people who will turn around and shame you for anything that they deem inappropriate. And they also complain about how people in their own community, like Christians, have such repressive attitudes about sex. Yes. Like, where do you think they got that from? Not from like Paul and Morgan and Bethy specifically, but from this culture. Like, this is a inseparable piece of fundamentalism and this like charismatic evangelical Christianity. Like, these things all go together culturally, and you cannot tease them out unless you're willing to do the work of deconstructing and unlearning fundamentalism as a religious perspective and this like very legalistic approach to interpreting the Bible and like religious teachings and things like that to become a progressive Christian. That's why I said too that I don't take issue with regular Christian people, because this is not regular Christianity. These people have such a legalistic and literal interpretation of the things that are in their religious teachings and their holy text, and they speak about this with this attitude of expertise, this attitude of like definitively this is the capital T truth, but then are willing to bend the rules for topics like sex and intimacy when it suits them. The other reason that this like really pushes my fucking buttons is because it comes across as people who have recently realized that, first of all, the things that they're teaching are not working in their own lives. There is like a pretty open and upfront admission here. The way that Bethy was approaching sex before now didn't fucking work for her or her partner, which is a product of purity culture. Bethy and what is her name? Morgan. Both did like an Instagram live where they were talking about how like, I don't understand where people got these ideas. Like, I don't get it. Why do people think these things about sex? Like, they refuse to acknowledge the learnings as being a product of purity culture because that would implicate Christianity as having done something bad. But again, it's very clear that we are coming to grips with the fact that the way that fundamentalism teaches people about sex and intimacy doesn't work, and far and away does not lend itself to like an actually healthy, enjoyable, empowering sexual experience. And to me, it does very much read as this desire to reap the benefits of like secular culture. These people want to have good sex. These people want to have sex that's empowering and fun and interesting and is at the end ending in an orgasm for the partner with a vulva, which is perfectly human and very normal and super valid. I think on one hand, I wanted to sort of look the other way and be like, whatever, a win is a win. But at the same time, I take issue with this attitude of like, I want this for myself. However, I'm still going to get on my platform to hundreds of thousands of people and tell you, don't do these things. You shouldn't be doing X, Y, and Z. There are still very strict rules around what is okay in sex and intimacy, and I am the one who gets to determine whether those are safe or healthy or not. That's not cool. And also, again, I'd like to point out that the expertise and training and life experience that's necessary to speak with that amount of authority is lacking pretty severely in all parties involved. There are no credentials. There is no significant life experience. Bethy literally admitted it herself. I haven't been married that long. So why then are we positioning ourselves as experts to speak prescriptively about the sex lives of other people when you yourself just admitted that you did not understand the very basic fundamental attitudes around sex that would lead to an enriching and positive sex life up until very recently? This is bothersome. And the other piece that I wanted to address here is the like lingerie being empowering and like helping you feel sexy thing. Like, yes, full send. We agree with that on this channel. I don't think that's surprising to anybody. However, the reason I take issue with Bethy pushing this advice is because these again are the people who will get on their channel and say it is super cool and totally normal and super godly to use lingerie to feel empowered and to unleash that eroticism within you. But also, if you wear shorts or if you wear a tank top with straps that are too thin or a two-piece bathing suit or a dress that's too short, then you are causing your brothers in Christ to stumble and your body is a problem. That's fucked up. This is such a confusing and conflicting message for these people to perpetuate because they willfully and intentionally play dumb about why people who aren't religious choose to wear clothing that they deem as immodest, and they choose to play dumb and to not listen or pretend to not hear when people say, this is for me, this is empowering for me, I'm choosing to dress like a bimbo or to wear a two-piece swimsuit or to wear short overalls because it makes me feel good about myself, because it makes me feel at home in my body, because it makes me feel empowered and proud and safe and comfortable with myself, right? These are the same people who talk about drag being demonic. Like the very expression of wearing clothes that are expressive and gender bending and fun and exaggerated, they think that's demonic. regardless of the fact that it is actually a very empowering and very safe and very culturally enriching experience for the people who choose to participate in that environment, they choose to, Bethy and Kristen and this culture choose to play dumb to that fact. But when it suits them and when it works for them, now it's fine for us to wear clothing because it's in the context of marriage and because it's about me mostly. It's fine for me to choose to wear clothing that's empowering to me and for me to understand the concept that the things that I put on my body matter and impact the way that I feel about myself. The primary issue that I take with this shift in messaging is that there's been no acknowledgement of how harmful their previous teachings were, or that there's been a shift in the first place. Bethy and Kristen are really committed to just like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. We didn't used to talk about that. We didn't used to say that. We have shifted our ideas about modesty. Maybe they've made a few videos about their like shifting ideals about modesty, but they refuse to acknowledge that they openly and aggressively and like really intentionally participated in shaming sexuality, arousal, sex and intimacy generally, like literally up until recently. Like really, honest to God, a few months ago, we were putting out videos about how sex and intimacy and female empowerment were bad things. But now that it suits us, we're choosing to change that messaging. And also I think because they are aware that having this really repressive and like punitive approach to discussing sex and intimacy doesn't read well with the internet, and it wasn't getting them the clicks and the likes that they were looking for. They're trying to shift this messaging. But I think it's important to acknowledge and to like call out into the room that their fundamental beliefs about people and about life have not changed. These again are the same people who will turn around and shame you into oblivion, and want you to feel bad about yourself and want you to have this like really intense sense of shame about who you are, while also talking about, but it's totally fine for me to wear lingerie and like it's cool as long as it's in the context of marriage, it's totally fine. This is such a conflicting message and it's harmful and it's irritating to me, but also like the antithesis of what we know about safe practice in terms of speaking about really nuanced and sensitive topics. Woo. Okay, we're gonna watch this reel about, is it reel or reels? I don't use fucking reels. I don't know. We're gonna watch this video about 5 ways to have an awesome Valentine's Day as a single woman.
5 ways you can have an awesome Valentine's Day as a single Christian woman. Number 1, figure out something that you can do for someone else on that day. So whether it's a sister, a friend, do something extra special for them. Surprise them in some really fun way. That's a great way to get the focus kind of off of how sad you went, how sorry you feel for yourself, and really just the excitement of blessing someone else. Number 2.
Okay, we're just gonna piecemeal our way through this. I want to talk about this because this, you see, this is what I'm talking about, where within this culture, the idea of being a single person is so heavily stigmatized that when making content about how to enjoy a holiday that's about couples or romance or whatever, Bethy can't even conceptualize the idea that someone might be single on purpose, someone might want to be single, someone might enjoy being single, and that singleness is not a thing that causes all people to feel a sense of deep shame and like sorrow about their life and state of affairs. There's actually a really interesting Pew research thing about singleness. I'll link it in the description, that Pew Research did about singleness in the United States. The majority of single adults in the US reported, self-reported, that they're not even looking for romantic relationships or dates. This is also like an interesting breakdown in terms of gender. People who identified as male and female report being single at different rates. Again, I'll link this in the description, but basically there are a lot more single men than there are single women, which is like an interesting factoid for a different day. But this is what I'm talking about. Like Bethy can't even conceptualize this idea that like, honest to God, the vast majority of people aren't actually interested in being in a long-term romantic relationship. We actually talked about this in the Classically Abby video, which I will put up here. There are a lot of really important and like key factors in why people are not choosing to be in long-term partnered relationships, that don't have anything to do with being a godless heathen, but have a lot more to do with like having a much harder time meeting our own basic needs, finding some kind of financial stability. There's a whole like bunch of stuff. We talked about it in the video. I'll put it up here if you want to watch that. But this attitude about like singleness is like such a sad, depressing thing that all people would want to steer away from is a product of this culture. And also, for what it's worth, one of the largest driving factors in why people end up in partnerships and marriages that are not gratifying or fulfilling or empowering, and also lead to disempowering and dysfunctional sex lives, when we encourage people to just choose a person. Doesn't have to be the right person, but just fucking choose somebody. Get married, because that's the way that it's supposed to be. That's God's design for intimacy. It removes the empowerment and the experimentation phase from the process of relationships, which is very important to understanding whether someone is a good match for you long term, whether you and this person's life visions align, whether you guys are looking for the same things, whether your chemistry matches and is like actually there or not, and can lead to a whole host of negative outcomes. I don't want to speak prescriptively or definitively rather about Bethy's marriage because I don't know her and I think that's inappropriate. So I'm not saying that Bethy and Dave are unhappy. And also, don't be in my fucking comments speculating about his sexuality. It's fucked up. Don't do that. But I think, again, it's clear that the culture that Bethy is upholding does very much do this to people. And while it may work out for some people, most of the time it does not.
A Valentine's party or attend one if someone else is planning one. This could just be with you and a couple friends, or make it a really big event or really big party, but plan something so that you have something to do on Valentine's Day night. Number 3, make sure you wake up and start your day in the Word. Have a really special time with God, in your Bible, prayer that'll set your day up for success.
Whatever.
Number 4, avoid stores if that's a stressful time for you. If all the candy and roses stresses you out, just avoid the stores.
Okay. Again, is this attitude that singleness is like a disease, and like obviously something that will suck all of the joy out of your life. Don't get me wrong, there's lots of reasons to avoid stores on holidays. I kind of do this honestly because I am a very sensitive sensory being and I don't like all the noise. It stresses me out. So like, if you don't want to be at the store on major holidays, don't fucking go. That's fine. I don't take beef with that advice. But I do, first of all, think it's funny that Bethy is sort of outing herself as this person who like views singleness as like such a depressing and sad thing. But also I take issue with just telling people like, just avoid all of the things that make you sad. Girl Define has a long track record of telling people that your emotions are sinful, your emotions are bad, you should not feel them, you should avoid them at all fucking costs. And if you do feel how you feel, devil, demons, bad, get out of here. And like, I hate it. I fucking hate it. It is the opposite of all of the conventional advice that we get about mental health. The thing that we know definitively from the research is that the most effective way that we can show up for ourselves and actually process painful or difficult emotions is to be with them, is to sit with them, is to honor that this is welcome here. This is allowed. I am going to make space for this. I'm going to honor that this is a normal and like real thing to feel. And then I'm going to like process this and then I'm going to let it go. And then it goes. That's how emotions are supposed to fucking work. To be clear, by the way, I don't have frustration for people who have a hard time doing this. That's very human. There are lots of therapists who can help you work that if you want to look for one in the description. But my frustration is with this attitude that the way to deal with emotions is just by not, because that's not how it works. And it increases people's suffering. It also like sets the timer back on how long it will take someone to effectively do that work and potentially increases the amount of time that they're suffering, which pushes my fucking buttons.
Number 5, plan to have a great day. Like mentally start preparing yourself that you're going to have a great day on Valentine's. Grab my guide to help you.
No. But also just toxic positivity your way through all of the pain. Like, this is what I'm talking about. Even if someone is having a hard time on Valentine's Day, which is a perfectly valid and normal and human thing. Lots of people feel sad about holidays that uplift something that either you're not looking for or that you don't have. So super fair if that is how you feel. But just telling yourself, I'm gonna have an awesome day, isn't actually going to make it awesome. In fact, it might make it worse. There is a lot of wisdom in honoring that like this day might actually suck. And so maybe I will go to a Valentine's Day party, or like go to dinner with a friend, or like get high at my house and watch dumb movies by myself, and just like give myself permission to say that like this day might be a wash, you know, like maybe I won't be super productive today. Maybe I won't be like, you know, a positive Polly all day. And like, that's fine. That's very normal. And again, part of showing up for our humanity and really validating that you as a human being are in fact allowed to have complex emotional responses to things. And you don't just have to fucking white knuckle your way through life to prove that you're a godly person, because that's not true. Okay, the last thing that we're gonna watch is actually an excerpt from this podcast. I know you guys want me to talk about it. I will talk about it eventually. It's just very long, and like we all know that I have a hard time being concise in the first place. So like a 2-hour piece of media turns into like 5 or 6 hours of uncut footage, which is like a bit of a tall order. So we're just gonna watch this little excerpt for now, and then plan on making the longer video later.
a lot of times as Christians, especially as Christian women, and those of us who grew up more in the purity culture and all of that, we kind of view it as like 0 to 100. Okay. So like, even when we're engaged, it's kind of like 0, don't think about it, don't talk about it. Like, okay, get married 100%. And then it's just like, oh, and it just doesn't really work that way. And so she was saying, view it a little bit.
So weird, Bethy. You mean the advice that you've been espousing for years doesn't work? That's an interesting take.
More like an on-ramp, like as you're getting closer to marriage, having more in-depth conversations with trusted mentors, growing in your understanding of sex and intimacy, you can kind of like gradually grow into that. And then you get married and it's not like, oh my gosh, this is the first time I'm even saying the word, like I said, like penis or vagina, or even thinking about an orgasm,
So what you're saying is that this attitude that we should put sex, intimacy, arousal, eroticism behind a gate that only people who have a ring on their finger can access isn't good. Remember how we have talked like so much on this channel about the reason that the research doesn't support this idea that you should just get married as fast as possible so that you can be sexual or intimate with your partner. A lot of that having to do with the fact that we are going 0 to 100 because we gatekeep intimacy and sex and arousal even from your own self until you get married, and then all of a sudden you have never kissed anyone, had anyone touch you, experienced sexual arousal in an intentional way, and the expectation now is that you let someone else be inside of your body. Remember how we talked about that? And there was a lot of like Christian pushback or like fundamentalist pushback about this idea. Do you guys remember that? Because I remember that, and I think that might be an important thing for us to acknowledge, that Bethy and Kristen are on record as saying that exploring sex or intimacy or masturbation, Kristen made a whole video about masturbation, we talked about it, I'll put that up here, and about how that is opposite to God's design, because sex within marriage is designed by God and it's good, and so it's fine. God designed it that way, and so it will be fine, except that it's so weird, we're coming out now and saying that like, well, hold on a minute, this wasn't fine. So which is it? This is what I'm talking about. This is the messaging that really pushes my fucking buttons, because the reality is that there was a whole ass demographic of people for years and years that consumed this type of media. And like, not that Kristen and Bethy invented this. Let's give credit where credit is due. This was invented a long time ago, and it like is a cultural ideal. However, they did very much play their part in uplifting this advice as true, as wise, as safe, as like the way. And that really fundamentally damaged a lot of people's fucking lives and sex lives and intimacy and self-esteem and ability to like self-love their own bodies and to feel comfortable in their own bodies for like potentially forever, but for sure for like a fucking long time. Like, this is real work that therapists that I've done with people around unlearning the shame that purity culture assigns to someone because of this repressive and ass backwards attitude about all of the things that Bethy and Kristen talk about. And it doesn't sit right with me that all of a sudden, now that Bethy's decided she's tired of having bad sex, that she wants to switch this messaging and talk about now sexual freedom within marriage, though, as long as it's within marriage, but sexual freedom, like, that's not cool. That's not fair. And it's important that people acknowledge the harm that they've caused when they make a shift like this.
It's like you can, in a healthy, God-honoring way, you can prepare for that. And so that was super, super helpful. A lot of times as Christians.
The other thing about this that I think is important to discuss is this idea that like, I want to receive the benefits of the conventionally conventional wisdom that like secular communities have about creating a sense of safety, a sense of caution, a sense of slowness, or like patience, I guess, with developing our sexual identities. I want to receive that, but I also still want to shame people who do things that don't do what I do, basically. This is disingenuous, but again, also like such a transparent ploy to try to make the advice that like the secular world has, what is the word? Embraced. Oh, I hate when that happens. That this actually secular world has embraced for a long time. I want to receive the benefits of that. And so I'm basically just going to say masturbation is fine. Sex before marriage is like fine-ish. Maybe not like sex before marriage, but like all of the like slowness and the buildup and all of that, that's fine. And I'm just gonna like try to make it. I'm gonna like do some mental gymnastics and some creative wording to make this biblical. Now, like, just because you're calling it self-cultivating doesn't mean that you're not flicking the bean, Bethy. Like, it's still masturbating. It's still the same. And so just calling it a fancy word and lighting a lavender candle doesn't make it godly. And I think this is like a really important distinction to make, because masturbation is not a bad thing. Learning how to explore your own pleasure independently of partners is a very normal and human thing if sex is something that calls to you and feels safe for you. This is something that we should not be shaming. We don't have to put flowery language around it to say that I need some fucking time alone to fuck myself because I don't want to have sex with someone else. Like, that's fine. But Bethy and Kristen and Paul and Morgan trying to make this a like religious thing, like, actually I've discovered there's a back door to God's secret design. Not like that. There's like a trap door in the basement of God's word that actually does say that self-cultivation is fine. Like, that's not true as far as I'm aware, but also just, again, reads is really transparent, this really transparent desire to reap the benefits of things that they've shamed and stigmatized for a really long time, and it doesn't sit right with me. I think it's not a surprise to anybody that I have very little patience for like such a transparent and self-focused shift in the messaging that Bethy and Girl Defined are pushing, because again, like, my goal in making the content on this channel is to encourage people to feel at home and comfortable with themselves and to do the work around unlearning the shame that the things that the world teaches us are bad or things we should be ashamed of, right? And so I don't want to look down my nose necessarily at Bethy and Kristen choosing to embrace a worldview that's just like ever so slightly less toxic. However, I think A, it's really important that they acknowledge the harm that they caused, first of all. But second of all, or B, that the really transparent desire to reap the benefits of like secular teachings still is coming coupled with this very shaming, very stigmatizing, very repressive attitude and culture, and that the core of that belief has not changed. And again, these people are still looking like their primary focus is to evangelize young and vulnerable and like not fully formed people into their religion for the purpose of selling them this bill of goods that's not actually true. And they know that it's not fucking true. You can see it in the way that they're trying to market this sudden change in their belief system. So generally still super fucking frustrated with what Girl Defined and Bethy and Paul and Morgan and like all of the fundy influencers are doing. If you guys like the video. I think I've tired myself out for today. Subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. We also do like a cute pop culture moment every now and again, so I'd love to have you stay. And then share the video to help the channel grow and to help each other grow. And I will see you guys next Saturday. Okay, bye. That's a wrap, boys.